फर्स्ट ऑफ ऑल नमस्ते, मेरा नाम आइजक दोरू, आपसे मिलकर खुशी है.
Thanks for tuning in to another episode of 420 Grams, and as you can make out, we're not in the comforts of our studio. We are in the room which just recently hosted the press conference, the first press conference of the new technical director of the All India Football Federation and also the new head coach of the Indian football team, Doru Isac and Igor Stimac. I'm joined by my co-host, the one and only Siddhanthani, who was late for this press conference, but nonetheless, because the press conference only started very late, so all of us were saved. But PC over, man. It's been about 10 minutes since the PC's been over. I, for once, for the first time in my life...
Joy.
Yeah, I've come across like I have sat in a PC where I've honestly taken something in and felt like this was a good press conference for come for. You didn't hear the usual diplomatic spiel that you hear and that you've gotten so accustomed to hearing in football press conferences. Banal, boring. Everything sounded really nice. It felt like they were prepared. And from start to finish, I didn't feel like there was a point where they were dragging it through, you know.
So yeah, absolutely fantastic. I think proper football people for one.
Exactly.
Proper football guys.
Top football people. You can make out.
No idhar-udhar ki baat, no sort of randomness. They knew what sort of questions people would be asking.
Exactly,
they had prepped for it.
Yep.
And they were ready with answers. Not side-tracking stuff. Not ignoring questions of this league or that league. But also addressing the larger issues that surround it, because it's not just a question of which league will survive, right?
Yeah.
There's so many more things happening in Indian football, and it seems like, of course, it's a press conference and we shouldn't get too carried away with how well prepared they were. Yeah. It's a good thing, but it's a great start.
Yeah. It's a welcome change. It's a great start. And as always, you know, it was expected that the conversation was going to come to ISL versus I-League, as is always the case. And so the first real question that was posed at Igor Stimac, this is what he had to say about that conflict of sorts between the ISL and I-League.
Of course, there are certain problems at the moment between the leagues, between organization, competitions and all that. Everything can be sorted with a good communication. We all can find benefits if we communicate, if we sit down, if we talk. My job will not only be selecting and working with the players of senior team and under 23 team. Already with Mr. General Secretary Kushal Das, we discussed many other things we need to do. Going and visiting the clubs, talking to club managers, organizing communication between us on a weekly or monthly basis.
Right, so Igor Stimac there, of course, giving a clear answer, saying that, look, first and foremost, he's not denying that there's a problem. Yep. He's saying there is a conflict. So that is step one. Yep. And then he's saying everything can be solved with dialogue. If you start having dialogue with everyone on the table, give them their due importance, and you find a way forward, man.
Yep. I think the largest issue in terms of this conflict, or whatever you want to call it, has been the lack of communication, the lack of understanding, the lack of regular dialogue between the people making the decisions and the clubs that are involved in the process. Maybe I'm jumping ahead, but one of the bites that was critical in this whole discussion was when Stimac said, you cannot buy tradition.
That for me was the line of the press conference.
It takes 100 years to build, and obviously he knows a little bit because he's done some research. So he knows that club football has been around in India for 100 plus years, and people like Mohun Bagan, East Bengal, all of these clubs have been doing the work. So
and he's acknowledging that.
He's acknowledging that. And he's saying that from day one, his role is to have those conversations, encourage those conversations, and bring not just clubs and players currently, but also older people who've been involved with the game. You know, legends that we talk about often enough, Vijayan, Ancheri, even older guys than that. Bring them into the conversation and establish a sort of framework in which Indian football needs to operate. I think it's really
So
positive change.
without further ado, let's just get to that bite, of course. So what Stimac said, as far as tradition is concerned, that the I-League clubs have built over a long period of time. And the line was, tradition cannot be bought.
ISL is a league mostly privatized with private owners of the clubs who are investing money, and of course, whoever is investing money, he is expecting to gain the money, which is normal. I-League has been there for many years, and I-League has something which ISL cannot buy. It's tradition. You cannot buy tradition. It will take 100 years to become traditional league for ISL. So working on those things, how the things could be matched together between ISL and I-League, I can see a window where we can maybe find solution to put everything together and find a way to help I-League clubs to speed up in their progression, and ISL to get the part of the tradition from which is nowhere to be seen now, you know.
So that, of course, was the ISL versus I-League, but there are so many other topics to talk about in Indian football. The national team, for one, and of course, questions were thrown at Igor Stimac. One was on style of play. Everyone wanted to know about what our proposed style of play is, or what do you make of the Indian team's style of play so far?
I think the cool part was that these guys addressed the question of style of play before we brought it up. I think for sure, 100%, these guys have been in their research watching 420 grams because it's something that we've been talking about all the time. And I guess maybe that was a really bad joke, but they are addressing the football concerns that, as we claim to be football people, we have the same concerns.
Yeah.
An understanding of a larger picture of how India will play football.
So before we chat on that, let's just throw to what Stimac said, because when he was asked, what do you make of this Indian team so far when you were doing your research on the Indian team, he said, this is what I had to say on style of play.
I have seen the games Mr. Konstantin had played. Yeah, we can say that he opted for more defensive football, but his football was adapted to the players he had. He's chosen. That was the way, the most effective way to play with those kind of players. I'll do my best to have more options, to have A, B, and C option, to learn my players every time we are together how we can transform from one option to another one, because when the game goes wrong and you're losing 1-0, you cannot go sit back and defend. You need to transform into another playing system, into another concept of the game, and try to win the game, even you are losing at the moment.
One thing we need to understand, that we need to build up now a national game model as a nation, how we can play. It's not more attacking or more defending. But one word I want to tell you now, in our national game concept, will be synchronized. Synchronized is part of the modern football. It means synchronized, to answer to your question, is when we defend, we think about attack, and when we attack, we think about defending. Genes of India. You are very agile people. You have the tempo of the movement. Don't forget you have the best dancer in the world. Seriously. Now the movements are there. The passion now is there.
So Isac Doru there, of course, making a really good point, man. And it's something I kind of agree with, that say when Spain and the style of play that they've adopted, which has dominated world football for the last 10, 15 years, it was a style of play which was not just thrown upon the national team. It was the under-18s, the under-16s, the under-14s, the under-23s. So it was a style of play was uniform, right? Right from the grassroots till the senior team. And everyone was told that we must work towards the style of play. And if that is what can happen, I think the first job is to find what is our style of play. Once we identify that, then implement it across all age groups.
So the sort of dance analogy, of course, India, Bollywood. It's all like a. It's how we present ourselves to the world in some way, and connecting the country to an idea of movement, because there's so much happening in India all the time. There's so many people. We're constantly on the move. It's something that I think Isac Doru hit the nail on the head. We like dynamism, we like action. So where he was saying that in a game, if you see 100 attacking actions, the chances are that the football watching public will be more keen to look at something like that than if you see a defensive style of play. Now, of course, it's much easier to play a defensive style of football than it is to play an attacking style of football, because it requires, a much more technical expertise, speed,
Yeah, shape and all you can always work on.
shape you can work on. Yeah, you can always park
Fitness
the
you can
bus.
work on,
Fitness you can work on,
Yeah.
and we have already done that, right? Some of those initial steps, because of the ISL, modern coaching and all of that, has already been achieved. So we have guys who can do 13 kilometers a game. But what we essentially don't have, and another key factor that these guys brought up, was what happens in the middle of the pitch, how the midfield will handle the game. These are important questions that will sort of tie together how India starts to play football, and it's good enough, I think, starting point
Yeah.
to at least try to define that.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up, because let's just listen into what Igor Stimac had to say in what he meant by what he analyzed, what his analysis of the team has been so far. And of course, he was referring to what the Indian team was doing at the Asian Cup. And of course, in 2018, he's saying he saw all the Indian team's matches, and I saw a couple of the games in the ISL as well. So this is what his analysis was so far.
I have seen few things which I can consume in lack of concentration during the games, lack of tactical movement, tactical knowledge in the game, and reaction on the second ball, which is probably the most important ball in football today. Of course, you all know that we have some problems in defense. We don't have enough competitors for the positions in defensive, especially in center-back positions. We need to work on it. I need to find a way to cover those positions with more competitors, with more players who will be there competing for the place in the team. And that's at the moment first problem I am facing, because all good results starts with good defending.
I can understand the defenders part, yeah, because come to think of it, you've got Salam Ranjan, who's playing in the I-League. Then Anas is gone. Anas is retired. So now who comes in? And it's a like whenever we talk about Indian football, we say there's a paucity of strikers, man. We never think about defense, right? We always say who will replace Sunil Chhetri, goal kaun marega. But he's actually correct in saying that who is the main defender there. And I feel that job, he may be thrust into the limelight, or thrust upon the limelight, may be thrust upon him, is Anwar Ali. Yeah. This is the perfect time to blood that boy. Put him in there and tell him, look, you can make mistakes, yaar. Koi baat nahi, yaar. Just develop a partnership with him and Jhingan, where Jhingan's the elder statesman and he's guiding him. And when you give that responsibility to a player, na, कि इस बच्चे को guide करना है, अपने आप से वो player भी बड़ा होता है.
Being absolutely one, I mean, he was the standout pick in the probables list.
Yeah.
The fact that
Hands
he can take set pieces effectively from distance.
And also the diagonal ball.
Yeah,
the long
the diagonal ball. Yeah. The fact that this now is a kid that's been trained in the right way of playing football for whatever it's worth, from the age of 13, 14, you know. So he has a sort of head start that even Jhingan didn't have.
Yeah.
Or none of the guys that we sort of considered the best defenders in India had. So it's unfortunate that maybe Anwar Ali is the only guy as in a central defensive position to have emerged from this under 17 squad.
Yeah.
I would have liked 3-4 more guys. We both like Boris a hell of a lot, and I think wingbacks.
I think he's
I don't think he's plateaued. I don't know.
Yeah. If you notice with Boris, the trend is that under 17 World Cup, Boris is on a high. Then the Indian Arrows, first 2 years, Boris is on a high. But then over the last year or so, that at least हमारे आँखों में तो हम Boris. But if you notice the way the coach and the selections that are happening, you can make off that there's a severe drop in terms of picking Boris in the playing 11, or he wasn't even there in the under 23 side, man. I was surprised about that.
Yeah.
And
maybe he's a bit too attacking or too attack minded for the sort of system that India will play at a competitive level anyway. So, or maybe it'll take a couple of years. But coming back to the question of defenders and central defenders particularly, I think on the wings we're all right.
Salam Ranjan.
Yeah.
I mean, these are not boys you can thrust upon as the main national team defenders right now, at least.
Yeah.
So Anwar Ali, be a good gamble actually.
Absolutely. And he's got the cool hair also going. So
Yeah.
plenty of social media following. So these things are also important in terms of building the conversation around the national team and things going forward. And of course, we are going to, for you guys who are watching, we're going to the King's Cup in Thailand in 10 days from now. And we'll get a chance to, just like the coaches are getting a chance to and the technical director, to assess how the team plays in a competitive environment very quickly in off-season, which is really great.
Yeah. And honestly, actually, come to think of it, in these 2 months, the Indian team is playing 2 quality competitions. That is King's Cup, where you're playing quality opposition. And then you come back to India and you play the Intercontinental Cup, where you've got some solid sides this time, man. There's Syria, there's Tajikistan.
Absolutely.
And which is DPR Korea.
And so already the cool stuff is starting to happen, right?
Yeah.
The minute you get we've lost the nameplates, but you get a guy who's finished 3rd at the World Cup, who's played with legends and is in his own right.
Who's worked under someone like
Arsene Wenger. Yeah. So automatically the conversations between national federations start to expand, right? No offense to Stephen Constantine or whoever was in this position in the past, and there have been several learned and sort of accomplished people who've held the role of India manager. But the fact that these guys are here, it means that bigger teams will now be interested in playing India.
Exactly. Agreed.
Even now, we don't know so much about Curaçao because it's a small Caribbean island. But the fact is they have players, I mean, they're a former Dutch colony. They have several players who are playing in the Dutch league, right? So these are big, strong, fast, technically gifted players who will for sure give us a fight.
Agreed.
For sure. They went 2018 undefeated. They didn't lose a single game in 2018. It's not
stretch of the imagination
at all. So straight into the scene, we're going like highly competitive, and these guys will get like almost no break, and
straight into the ISL after
straight in.
So it's going to be a long season. Just someone who's going to be very crucial for India, at least from our point of view and journalists' point of view, is Sunil Chhetri, who's of course been the talisman of Indian football over the last couple of years.
What's up, brother?
He is 34 now. He is younger than us, so we have more experience as far as life is concerned than Sunil Chhetri. But the point being,
we've been married longer.
Yeah, we posed a question to the coach on Chhetri, the conversations he's had with him, and this is what he had to say.
Sunil is very valuable to our team. He's a role model for these young players who are knocking on the door. He's played so many games, he's so experienced, scored so many goals. But as well as others, he needs to fight for the place in the team. You know, we all start from zero. Football is like that. You don't get paid for the past. You get paid for today's job.
So the coach, of course, making it pretty clear, look, I respect Sunil Chhetri, but everyone has to fight for his place. Everyone has to earn his place.
Bilkul.
That somewhat is the answer you would expect from anyone, to be fair. Yeah. But, I mean, Sunil Chhetri is going to be up for the challenge, man.
For sure.
I mean, I just saw one picture of his right now. He's still looking as fit as ever, man.
The day the probables list was announced, I think he put an Instagram story out saying, I'm in the camp. So, you know, he's always got that, man, little bit of fire, always got that energy going, and he's always up for competing for his spot and all of that. And it's great to have him around, even though these days he doesn't talk too much to us. But yeah, Sunil, I think Sunil, at least for the next couple of years, and for these guys to also get settled into the system, how they work with Sunil will be important, I think.
I think what will be really crucial is who he selects as his captain going forward. Because I don't think Stimac comes across as someone who's going to do the whole rotational captain system. Bhai. वो नहीं चलता. For a stability in your team going forward, one guy, one leader, one voice. So it remains to be seen if Sunil is that guy. That only time will tell us. But I think
वैसे हम बैटिंग करते नहीं हैं, लेकिन आई थिंक वो स्टॉपर है खुद, तो शायद संदेश को ही बनाएगा, संदेश या गोपी. These guys between Gurpreet and Sandesh, that's my bet on it.
My opinion still remains that it should be Sunil.
Yeah.
But the Asian Cup is far away. I think the one way to sum up Sunil and his enthusiasm for the game is when we were doing our shows, of course, on the Asian Cup, and we said that he's 34 now. So clearly he's not going to be playing the next edition of the Asian Cup, because then he's going to be on a walking stick or a cane, and that came.
भैया थोड़ा नाराज हो गए थे.
He's like, भाई साहब, मैं खेलने वाला हूँ. I'm going to prove you guys wrong. And that sums it up, man. So that brings us to an end of another episode of 420 Grams. We hope you enjoyed this episode as we sort of, gave a sort of summed up, overview of what the press conference was like. Just a reminder, Kings Cup is starting on the 4th of June in Thailand. We guys are planning to go there.
With Mr. Randy Singh.
With Mr. Randy Singh, former India captain. And we're not paying him anything also. He's coming free of cost because of goodwill, because Randy loves us, right?
We love him.
Yeah. So we plan to do a lot of shows from there, pre-match shows from the training ground, then of course post-match shows after India's match in the stadium, and of course lots of interviews with the players and the coaches involved. So do stay tuned to 420 Grams. Remember, one weekly show on Indian football coming your way every week. That is our promise. Thank you so much for watching. Goodbye.
Bye.